Hey guys, Sean from Living Seeds, your seed guru. Today we are talking about the Swirskii Ultimate, one of my favorite predators. We are in one of our super hot pepper production tunnels. And if you like super hot peppers, this is where the magic happens. And we use Swirskii mites excessively, and we do use it excessively. We release hundreds of sachets of Swirskii mites into our tunnels and into our fields every single year, and it allows us to do things that normally would not be possible in a tunnel like this. And let me give you a hint, I'll cover it a little bit later in the video, but we use the Swirskii mites as an anti-pollination mechanism, and that is a trade secret that I'll discuss a little bit later for you guys. As you know, on Living Seeds Farm, we're 100% organic, and even though we have organic pesticides that we can use and spray, we would rather have nature fight our battles for us. So we use traps. This is a yellow bucket funnel trap specifically for cutworm. This red trap down here is a red water trap to catch Tuta absoluta, the tomato leaf miner, which does actually affect peppers as well. And then we release predators, and we release a range of predators. So we'll release wasps for aphids, we'll release muggies for aphids, we will release various mites. So we'll release the Swirskii mites, we'll release the Persimmon mites. So there's a whole lot of things that we will do to ensure that we have a very low pest pressure on Living Seeds Farm. Today we are talking about the Swirskii mite, and let's get into what makes this little mite so special. We buy boxes of 100 sachets of the Swirskii mites, and this is how it's sold by Coppet is 100 sachets of Swirskii mites. Living Seeds is one of two companies in South Africa that are authorized resellers of the Coppet products. So if you are looking for Coppet products, hop onto our website. We've got a whole range of them there. However, let's talk about the Swirskii mite. So the Swirskii mite is a tiny, tiny little mite, and Coppet actually invented this delivery mechanism. And let me explain the delivery mechanism to you so you understand how important these little sachets are. So first of all, the sachet is biodegradable. It'll biodegrade over a season in sunlight. These bags are called breeding bags, and the reason why they are called breeding bags is that Coppet inoculates these bags with bran. So the normal bran that you eat for breakfast, that makes you regular, that's the same bran that's inside here. So I can guarantee you that you have eaten bran mites with your breakfast, but let's not dwell on that fact. So they inoculate these little sachets with bran, and they put bran mites inside the bran. And what happens is the bran mites start eating on the bran, they're laying eggs, they've got a beautiful community going, and the population of bran mites builds inside these bags, which is really cool. They then take Swirskii mites and they inoculate these bags with the Swirskii mites. And the Swirskii mites see the bran mites and they go, hey guys, this is really awesome. The minute that the Swirskii are introduced to this bag, what happens is the Swirskii start to feed on the bran mites. And there's a hierarchy in every single predator's feeding strategy. And I'll run through this hierarchy for you, because understanding this will understand how the Swirskii mites work on your plants. So the first thing is the Swirskiis are not going to be eating the adult bran mites, because they need to fight the adult bran mite down, hold it down before it rips its head off and sucks the insides out. Not quite, but you get the idea. What the Swirskii mites do is they start to feed on the bran mite eggs, because the bran mite eggs don't fight back. So while the Swirskii mites are feeding on the bran mite eggs, the bran mites are still carrying on, and they are laying more eggs, and the eggs are hatching into larvae. And what happens is the Swirskii population will build, which is why it's called a breeding bag. It'll build inside the breeding bag until the Swirskii population overtakes the bran mite population. The minute that the Swirskii population overtakes the bran mite population, the Swirskii might start running out of food. And what happens is they start to leave this bag. And if you look really closely over here, you'll see there's a tiny hole on this bag, and the Swirskii mites exit from the tiny hole, and they will then move onto your plants and start to attack the pests on your plants, and I'll get to that shortly. Let's talk about the pests that Swirskii mites attack and other food sources that'll really help you if you understand how to use them. So the first thing is that Swirskii mites have two main pests that we use them for. It's thrips and whitefly. There's a host of mites that they'll attack. So they'll attack russet mites and broad mites and hemp mites and bran mites. They will eat these mites as well as a whole variety of other micro insects that you may or may not see. So they've got a pretty broad diet. One of the really cool things about the Swirskii mite, and this is what I really enjoy about them, is that if they don't have any pests to eat, they can change their diet and move their diet onto pollen. And they can't thrive, but they will survive on pepper pollen, various flower pollens, corn pollen, etc. And what happens is that their breeding cycle tends to drop when they're on pollen because it's not a high protein meal, but they'll be able to live, they'll be able to build a population quite slowly living off pollen. But the cool thing is, the minute that you have a pest that moves onto your plants, they will switch their diet like this from pollen onto the pest. The Swirskii mite population will build with the pest population, which is really very cool. If you are releasing Swirskii mites, there's one plant that you shouldn't release the Swirskii mites onto, and that is a tomato plant. And it's not because the tomato plant is poisonous to the Swirskii mite. The tomato plant is very hairy, and the Swirskii mites struggle, they really struggle to navigate their way through all of the hairs on the tomato plants. So they can work on tomato plants, they just really struggle to actually build a population and fight a pest population on tomato plants because of the hairs on the tomato plant. Just a quick interruption to this video. We love teaching you how to fight your pest battles using biologicals. If you find any value in this video, please like and subscribe. It'll make sure that this video goes out to more South Africans so that everybody gets the shortest path to success. We're quite early in the production season, and these pepper plants are just coming into flower now, and this is one of the reasons why we'll be releasing the Swirskii mites. So if you have a look at this plant has just started to come into flower, and the idea over here is to release the Swirskii mites onto these plants to control thrips. Thrips are probably our biggest cross-pollination vector in this tunnel. So this tunnel is insect free. However, the netting is not fine enough to exclude thrips from this tunnel. So what happens is the tiny little thrips will land onto the netting, go through the hole, come into this tunnel, and now they're in an environment where there are no predators for the thrips, and the thrips have a food source in the flowers, and the population will build. So what we want to do is we want to eliminate the thrips, because the thrips are little insects that fly from plant to plant, and they will cross-pollinate all of the peppers in this tunnel. What we do on Living Seeds Farm is we use nature to fight our battles for us. And it's very simple. You take a Swirskii sachet, you clip it onto a plant, and literally walk away. The mites will do the work for you. I'm going to talk a bit more about these breeding bags now, because it's important to understand how they actually work. But one of the things that I wanted to cover is that Living Seeds supplying biologicals to the home gardeners is a South African first. Normally, if you are buying from Coppet, you have to buy boxes of Swirskii mites, and the home gardener doesn't need 100 Swirskii mites. The home gardener needs 5 or 10 or 20 sachets at a time. And what we do as Living Seeds, we have the purchasing power because of you guys. We buy the big boxes, we break it down for you guys, and that allows us to get biologicals to the home gardener. Let's talk about these breeding bags and how cool and important it is to leave the breeding bags intact. The first thing is that, as I explained earlier, the Swirskii population builds inside the breeding bag, feeding off the bran mites. And once the population of Swirskii exceeds the bran mite population, the Swirskii mites start to exit the breeding bag, and they then start to move onto your plants. There's two things to remember. The first thing is that the Swirskii mite population will exit the breeding bag over a period of 6 weeks. This isn't a clip it on the plant and immediately the Swirskii mites go out and you use all of your Swirskii mites up in 2 or 3 days. No, what happens is there's a 6-week lag between you clipping the Swirskii mites onto the plant and all of the Swirskii mites having exited the bag. The next important thing to remember is that you should never cut this breeding bag open. The breeding bag is filled with bran, and bran is hygroscopic, so it'll absorb any moisture inside the atmosphere. And the minute that the bran absorbs the moisture inside the atmosphere, what's going to happen is it's going to clump and it's going to trap the majority of the bran mite population as well as the Swirskii mite population, and it'll suffocate any eggs or larvae that are growing inside the bag. With the Swirskii mites, we will release the Swirskii mites into our pepper plants just as the plants start to flower. That is when your first Thrips wave will start appearing in the plants. So if you release the Swirskii mites and you release more Swirskii mites than you have a Thrips problem, what happens is the Swirskii mites takes care of the Thrips immediately. So these plants have just started flowering. They got their Talborn Vita Fruit and Flower, which helped give the plant a little bit of a boost going into the fruiting season, and they've had a good mulch. You can see the mulch is all over the ground, so we don't have to worry about any weed pressure. The only thing that we need to worry about is pest control inside these tunnels. The mites do the pest control for us. Let me tell you about the breeding cycle of the Swirskii mites, because it's actually very interesting. The Swirskii mites have a minimum temperature that they can actually operate at, and below 13 degrees what happens is the Swirskii mite population will stall or even start to die out. They really can't handle anything below 13 degrees Celsius. At around 15 degrees Celsius, it takes 20 days to go from a Swirskii egg to a Swirskii adult that starts to lay eggs. So 20 days, that's a fair amount of time, especially for a tiny little mite. But that ramps up, and as the temperature ramps up to about 30 degrees Celsius, it goes from egg to adult mite in just 5 days. How awesome is that? Then once it hits about 36 degrees Celsius, the time it takes to go from egg to adult starts to actually increase. So 30 degrees is the sweet spot, 5 days from egg to adult. 36 degrees, you're going to 7 days egg to adult, and anything over about 42, 43 degrees Celsius, the Swirskii mite population just simply dies out. At 25 degrees Celsius, these Swirskii mites are laying approximately 3 eggs a day. So they reckon they lay anything between 1 and 4 eggs, but on average you're looking at about 3 eggs a day that a Swirskii mite can actually lay. The adult Swirskii mite is going to be eating 3 Thrips larvae every single day. One of the important things that you need to understand when you're releasing beneficials, and this goes for Swirskii, it goes for any beneficial insect that you're releasing into your garden. If you release the beneficials before you have the problem, you will generally never see a problem. If you have a problem, so if these plants were covered in Thrips or whitefly, and then we started to release a couple of little sachets of Swirskii mites into this pest problem, what's happening is these guys over here, they literally have, I'll use the burger example because it's a very good example. Most people can eat 1 or 2 burgers in a sitting. Some people can eat 3, but once you've hit 3 burgers, it gets to a point of, I'm actually full now, I'm not even going to eat supper, I'm that full, and you only eat the next day. The Swirskii mites or the predators are exactly the same. They have a limit to what they can eat in a single day. Once they're satiated, they're going to find a nice comfortable corner on the leaf, curl up, go to sleep until they're hungry again the next day. Your pest issue that's on your plant, these pests are laying eggs the whole time. The Swirskii mite are going to attack the eggs first. Once the egg population has been has been sorted, only then will the Swirskii mite start attacking the larvae. What you need to remember is while they're eating the eggs, some of those eggs are hatching into larvae. Those larvae are growing up into adult pests. Those adult pests are laying more eggs. The Swirskii are going to be fixated on the eggs, and they're not going to attack the adults. They're not going to attack the larvae. And this is the important thing to remember. This is not a magic cure when you have a problem. This is a magic cure before you have a problem. There's two more things to cover with the Swirskii mites. The first thing is that these guys don't overwinter. If your temperatures drop below 13 degrees Celsius, these guys are going to die out. So they need to be released every single year. We recommend that if you are ordering any beneficial, that you need to do a minimum of 3 releases. And I would recommend that you do the releases at least 2 or 3 weeks apart. It's not important if it's 2 or if it's 3 weeks apart. What's important is that you start the release before you have a problem. That's number one. Number two, do multiple releases a couple of weeks apart, because what's going to happen is your population of beneficials is going to build at the same time that the pest population builds. So if you do multiple releases, what's happening is you're providing multiple injections of beneficials to control your pest problem. So your question is, how many mites are in a bag? If we exclude the brand mites, because there's a whole lot of brand mites inside here, you are going to get a minimum of 250 Swirskii mites, 250 adult Swirskii mites inside here. And those mites are going to be breeding inside the bag. So in effect, there are hundreds of Swirskii mites inside one of these bags. Our advice, when you receive your Swirskii mites, or any beneficial for that effect, they're not shelf stable. This is not something you can put on a shelf, take it off the shelf and use it when you need it. These are living organisms that need to get into the environment that they need to increase their population. So when you receive your box of Swirskii mites, open them up, take the mites, clip them onto your plants and let them do their thing. One of the other benefits of releasing Swirskii mites into your plants is that the Swirskii mites stop plant diseases. And you ask, how does a Swirskii mite stop a plant disease? Let me give you an example. You have a Thrips, and the Thrips is feeding on this plant over here. This plant has got pepper mosaic virus. The Thrips takes off, lands on this plant over here, and he transmits the pepper mosaic virus from this plant to this plant. So the Swirskii mites control plant diseases in your crops. How awesome is that? This pig is distracting me. I don't know if we can pick it up on the mic. The adult Swirskii mite is going to be eating 3 Thrips larvae every single day. And we use aeroplanes. No, we don't use aeroplanes. First of all, you're not going to be able to count all of them. And secondly,